Aloha, everyone. Aloha nui loa, which means lots of love to you. And it's my honor and privilege to be with you all. This is a wonderful group. You all feel very good. My angels told me, though, that you were quite intellectual, some of you, so I would get some very challenging questions. So I surrender, but I wanted to touch base and maybe offer a window into the soul from a different paradigm than what maybe we generally consider, or even if we consider it at all. If I think about the history of the soul in writings, which some of you may surely know more than I do about, you can go back to the Veda scriptures from 1200, where Atman is recognized as the essential being of everyone. The Gita comes around 400, I think, BC, and says that the soul is incorruptible and indivisible and is the being. And oddly enough, right around that same period, Socrates is having this same insight, and he relates it to Plato. And if you read the writings of Plato, which I haven't looked at in a long time, but from the best of my recollection, he says the soul is divine. We've discovered it. And like the Gita, he says this is incorruptible, this is unique. This is the essence of every being. And because it's a gift from the Creator, it's divine. And thus you have the Hindus and the Greeks kind of coming up with the same idea that this discovery of the soul placed in every being is a divine thing. Now, the Greeks went one way with it, of course, and they included the ego, which, if you look up the word ego, I think in Greek it means exist. In modern terms, the arrogance of one's person, egotistically, you're being arrogant or self-centered, whatever. But the original meaning of the ego is to exist. So ego and soul, you could say the soul encompasses the ego. And from the Western point of view, maybe you would say this is a gift. And the soul, in essence, is the very being of oneself. Now, I just want to touch very briefly on the idea of the soul in indigenous cultures. And I don't claim to be any kind of expert on this, of course, but Native Americans and Native Canadians, First Nations folks, and also Aboriginals have some very similar ideas about what we would call the soul. Quite often, an interesting thing about these cultures, they say, well, the individual has more than one soul. There's a dreaming soul, and then there's a waking soul, and there might be a traveling soul, and then there's a soul that animates the body. So anywhere from 1 to 3 different ideas of soul. Perhaps we would think of these ideas as being the soul and the astral body, or the spirit body, or even the mind. However, my point here that I'd like to make is that if you go around the world and you look at all these cultures, they all seem to have a spiritual sense that all beings are unique and have a soul. Now, one aside from that is in Buddhism, there is no actual concept of soul. And though the Buddha was a Hindu, he didn't really mention it. I'm not sure he actually rejected it, but he didn't mention it. And when I considered Buddhism in my early days, I thought it was very interesting that the goal was nirvana. And the goal of Hindu reincarnation was celestial heavens. And often these terms are used simultaneously or in conjunction with each other. But I thought, in the Buddhist sense, I thought it was very strange that one could reach nirvana if you didn't have a soul, or if you didn't actually exist as an individual to begin with. So for me, on my journey, which has been a long one, I came to a place where for 20 years I had been a Hindu and a Sufi and a meditator and had many gurus. And during those times, a lot of the teachings would be, well, you need to just dissolve. You're going to dissolve in this soup of oneness. There's no duality. Everything is a oneness. And when you step out of the way, you will find this oneness. Now, that idea really drove my meditation for many, many years. And I'm not actually at odds with it. However, at this point, my experience is that every soul is unique. And even if a soul should merge with oneness or the Creator, God, the universe, that uniqueness remains. And it's a beautiful thing. It's kind of like if they photograph a water drop or a snowflake, they're all quite different. Even though you look at them and it's this lake or it's the snow on the ground. So getting back to this idea of soul. It's discovered that there's a soul and it's considered to be divine, a gift from God. So in Hinduism, most particularly, there's a whole system of yoga and scriptures and teachings developed around this idea that the soul is divine. Therefore, God is inside of you. And if you go within, you will experience this oneness. So if you go to a yoga class, even today, most likely your yoga teacher is going to say, just go within. Don't need to go without, just go within. Everything you need is already within. And this is an extension of this idea of divine. Unity Christians also adopted this idea. And it's taken from a mistranslation as well in Christianity of the words of Jesus, which according to the Gospels, he says, the kingdom of heaven is within. And actually, this is a mistranslation of the word entos from the Aramaic, which means in your midst. And scholars actually know this, but they tend to reject it. So you have Jesus who's in touch with the Creator. He's feeling this love. And he says, look, it's in your midst. Open up. You must be born again. Ask and you shall receive. He says all these things, supposedly. So for me, I had to consider these two schools of thought. One going within, which I had been doing for a long, long time, and getting calm, relaxing my mind, feeling this oneness with the universe and everything. I'm sure many of you have experienced this in prayer or meditation, so I'm not telling you anything new. But for me, there was something missing in that. And maybe this is not your experience, but for me it was. And I found myself in a dark night of the soul, I would say. And instead of meditating inwardly, I just began to pray. And I just prayed to God. And I said, look, I'm in this dark, deep place after all these years of being peaceful and calm and meditating. I'm just not feeling a connection in light and love. And I opened up, and the angel said, because you have been humble enough to actually ask for this gift, you shall receive it. And I felt the inflowing of this love, which was different than the natural love that I felt inside my soul. And I really had to open up and say, okay, this is something different for me. What does this mean? So to put it into words that hopefully will make some sense to you all. I feel that the love that's inside every soul is the natural love that the Creator, universe, however you want to look at it, puts in every soul. And it's a beautiful love. It's a wonderful place to go. And people have many manifestations in that zone. They see things, they're able to connect with spirit. They might see different forms, lights, manifestations. They might be able to channel all these wonderful things. However, for me, this experience that I had where I opened up and asked to receive, that for me was the divine love. And it was not only connecting with the universe, but make a connection with the source of the universe, the very Creator. And it was a very different thing. And it was like, it's hard to put these things into words because it was an experience that my soul had. And here I am trying to describe it, you know, in an intellectual way. So this was difficult to do. But in one sense, you could say it was like getting a hug from the Creator, embracing this natural love, and for the two coming together in a bridge. And that has been my experience now for quite some time. And I feel this glow in my heart area, which is something else I'd like to talk about a little bit. I feel now that the heart is the gateway to the soul. And if you look at music, people talk about soul music, or it's heartfelt, somebody singing from their heart. If you think of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the Sufi heart with wings, all these images of the heart being open. And in fact, I would say when the heart is broken, and probably everyone here has experienced some heartbreak. I'd be really surprised if somebody said, not me. Everyone has experienced some kind of heartbreak, a loss that just breaks your heart, and you literally feel broken. For me, that's where I was. And I think what happened with me was that rather than trying to medicate myself in some way or distract myself, there was something in my soul that said, open up and get a healing and receive. And I was able to receive this gift. So, in essence, I would not try to convince any of you that I'm right and somebody else is wrong or anything like that. But just to consider from a new paradigm, this idea that there is divine love from the Creator, and there is natural love, which is a gift also from the Creator, but they are distinct. And you could look at this one as the natural love is the love of our brothers and sisters in the world, the environment, the healing of Mother Earth, which we, of course, we so desperately need. Politicians around the world waking up and having maybe some kind of conscience or moral compass, in the case of the United States, I would say, and other places. But so this natural love, it's a beautiful thing. It's romance. There's many things to be enjoyed in the natural love. I would say the divine love is the connection to eternity. And whatever you believe, whether you're going to come back here a million times or you're going to progress in the spirit world, or maybe you have something else that you consider, I believe this connection with the divine in this love, and it's really all about love, whether it's natural or divine. This connects us with the infinite. This is the connection between the mortal and the immortal. And one of the things that really struck me was that people had always talked about the soul being created in the image of God. And, you know, I think in general, people kind of accept that and say, yeah, that's really cool. And if you take it totally literally, they think it's the actual body. So God's this old guy with a beard, or, you know, the goddess, whatever. It's a human form. We like to have these human forms. But for me, I thought the image, and then if you look in a mirror, there is your image. If you look, there's images on this screen. I'm looking at you all. But that image that I'm seeing is not your actual substance. For that, I would have to give you a hug and touch you or shake your hand. So I believe that this divine love, when one opens up to receive it and is humble enough to ask, whatever your concept is of God or the Creator, it actually transforms the soul from the mere image to the very substance of the Creator. And that's how I translate this quote that's often associated with Jesus saying, I and the Father are one. And I don't believe he said, I'm God. I think he said, I'm one with God in this love. That's how I translate it. So my experience is been from going to the inner, which is a beautiful thing. And when I pray and meditate, I always start by going within and just being calm, considering my breath, relaxing my body completely. And when I get to that space, in my heart space, I open up. And it doesn't have to be in my words, but I often use words. And I ask for my soul to be connected to the great soul. But really, I'm opening my heart and expressing the longings in my soul to connect with the Creator of the universe. And when that connection is made, I feel this light come in, this inflowing. It's like getting a hug from God is all I can say. I don't know how much of any of that resonates with any of you, but I thank you for letting me express my journey to you and share it with you. And I only have love for all of you, even if I don't know you. So on that note, I'm happy to try and answer any questions, or maybe you're going to tell me some things that I don't know.